Super September is here on Transit Unplugged, and we're kicking it off in a big way in New York City. I'm Paul Comfort, and today I'm talking with Demetrius Crichlow. He is the president of New York City Transit, the largest transit system in America. It's a system so essential that the majority of New Yorkers rely on public transportation every day to live, work, and connect in their city. Demetrius brings decades of experience with the MTA to his role and is about to celebrate his first anniversary as president. In our conversation, he pulls back the curtain on what it takes to run an operation this massive, the challenges and the triumphs along the way, and the recent customer experience improvements they're making, some of which may surprise you. He also discusses how they're addressing crime on the system and the role of congestion charging in America's largest city. Whether you're a transit professional, a daily rider, or just curious about how a city like New York City keeps moving, this is an inside look you won't want to miss. So let's dive into my conversation with Demetrius Crichlow, president of New York City Transit. Demetrius Crichlow, president of New York City Transit at the MTA, the #1 transit agency in America, baby. Great to have you with us, my friend.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be able to chat.
I read a couple years ago, and I think it's still true, 40% of all the rides that happen in America on public transportation on any given day happen in New York City. Is that still about right, those numbers?
Yeah, that's still about right. We like to flaunt that.
Yeah.
We are the big dog. We are the big dog.
Yeah, well, tell us about it. Tell us about the scope of what you do there in New York City.
Sure. So roughly 50,000 employees. We operate subway, bus, and paratransit service, somewhere around 27,000 on the subway side, somewhere in the 20,000 range for the bus side. And, we have the largest paratransit operation in North America. And we also have some administrative functions that support the operations.
So tell us about the structure of how it all works in New York, because you have some commuter work, but you do the main stuff in the city, right, as president of the New York City Transit?
Sure. We are all under the MTA umbrella. So consolidated functions for procurement, HR, budget, all of the administrative support that's not tied to the operations comes out of the headquarters function.
Okay.
And we share that reporting agencies of New York City Transit, Bridges and Tunnels, Metro North, Long Island Railroad, and Capital Construction and Development. It's exciting. We have everything that runs in the city. As long as it's not yellow with rubber tires, we kind of handle it.
And the system itself, how is it going now? Just like from a general perspective as president, what would you say if you had to give yourself a report card now? How are things going?
I might be a little biased, but performance is great. It's been better than it has been since we've modernized technology to have automatic time points for service. We've been somewhere in the 84, 85% performance range, which is, for us, a huge improvement of where we were.
Yeah,
It's
man.
a challenge system. I mean, it's a dated system, over 100 years old, a lot of infrastructure, things that need to be repaired, aging fleet, both on the rail and bus side. And everything is just large scale. When you're doing a replacement of a fleet, it is a large scale replacement. So it's just a very, very different beast than most folks would have to deal with. And again, we're doing great. Doesn't mean that we can't do better. Our paratransit operation has, without question, been one of the shining stars, doing a fantastic job of supplying services in ways that many thought were not possible, and has achieved an amazing customer satisfaction score as a result of doing it.
Oh, that's wonderful. I was working in D.C. for 5 years for MV, running their paratransit system about 15 years ago, and that's such a critical part. I thought we were big with 8,000 trips or 10,000 a day. So talk to us about your background. I mean, you've had an amazing background to work your way up to this. Give us your origin story.
Yeah, so I started as an assistant signal maintainer at the Long Island Railroad. 28 years ago, I was literally climbing poles, running fiber optic cable, digging ditches, working on crossing gates, and then took progressive opportunities to improve. Went to towers, dispatcher, went into management. I've been in management at Control Center for 204, which is Jamaica Control Center, Penn Station Central Control, and then I transitioned to MTA headquarters and then to New York City Transit. I've worked as the head of field operations for service delivery, general manager for service of several lines. I've been the head of the Rail Control Center, which is the largest control center in North America. I've been vice president of Staten Island Railway, executive vice president for operations, senior vice president leading all subways, and then, to this position now at Transit. So it's been a long career, probably one of the only ones that have gone through the organization, started from the bottom level to be able to get here. So it's great. I have a history in transit. My grandfather was a porter before the MTA existed, when transit used to report up to the city. And my father worked here as a car inspector, both retired. It's in my blood. It's been exciting to be able to fulfill a family's legacy of getting to where I am now.
It's beautiful. I love that story. I mean, my dad was born in Brooklyn. And when I was younger, he used to tell me, he used to ride the subway for a nickel, I think it was. And he said, I could ride it all day for a nickel. New York City really is, for America, the New York City MTA. It's the place where the transit service is kind of in your blood, right? If you grow up there, that's how you get around the city, right?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that if you live in the city or any of the boroughs within the city, your primary means of transportation is public transportation. I mean,
Yeah.
there are some of the extremes like Queens, some portions of the Bronx that folks drive, but the reality is most folks take public transportation. I think the last percentage we did was something like 60% of New Yorkers take public transportation, which is like, you know,
Yeah.
it's the primary means of transport here, which means you also have a big accountability to be able
Right.
to deliver on that service with everyone, the entire city, the region, this huge conglomerate, New York, which is the mega financial district, is relying upon you to be able to do your duty every day. So it is a huge task, but exciting to be able to do it every day.
Yeah. From a personal perspective, having kind of grown up in the system, what does it mean to you to finally, I mean, to me, the message that sends to the employees is, hey, you do a good job, you could end up in the top seat. I love that message to your employees, but what does it mean to you personally?
Yeah, I mean, so I never set out to be president. That
Yeah.
was not on the list of things to do here. I really just wanted to see if I could do a good job, and the opportunities just continue to grow. So it has been personally a huge thing for me, again, to follow in the footsteps of my family, my father.
Yeah.
That's huge to be able to accomplish it. But I think as an organization that is predominantly minority, it does also show the prospects for what you're capable of doing. Sometimes the world isn't fair, but the reality is at New York City Transit, we really do value diversity and making sure that the people who have the skill set to do the job are in places to be able to do it well.
That's wonderful. What a blessing. So, how would you describe your leadership style? You've gone through all these positions. Now you're in the top. Tell us about that, especially with such a large and complex organization.
It's interesting because I think my style has changed a lot over the years. When you start off at the low end of the organization, you do what's necessary to be successful at that level. And with each step you take, you have to grow. You have to change to be something that you weren't in order to be successful. Most of our organizations are hierarchical, and it'll be a position that's available to you. And generally, the next person who gets the job is the next person, whether or not they're the most skilled or not. It's usually the senior person that winds up getting the next job. And so, growing up in that organization, you had to really look for opportunities to be able to improve upon that. I've been really big on competence, finding people with the right skill set for specific positions. And in some instances, they weren't necessarily the person that has been here the longest. Sometimes they weren't even the individuals that were here, but selecting people specifically for tasks. And I think that has been a key element to support to my success. My leadership, I gave you a brief description of the positions I had. I think I've had somewhere in the range of 19 to 20 positions in one
Wow.
I've been here. And so I believe firmly that the more a person is exposed to an organization, the more the ability that they get to be able to see different parts of the operation, get challenged, that strengthens you as a leader. And so I've been really big about taking the team and pushing them, throwing them into different areas that they've never led before. which is different for sometimes, like for people, because you start an organization, you kind of expect like, this is my skill set, so I'm going to stay in these barriers. But, in order for the organization to grow, especially when you get to those senior levels of leadership, you need to challenge people to do more, to hone their skills, to take on more and different types of experiences. So taking folks that have never set a day in a bus garage and moving them over to buses from subways. It's like a huge change. Sending people who work at New York City Transit over to Staten Island Railway, which is a completely different system, different rules, different unions, different agreements, like challenging people to expand their mind and their horizon. So that's really been a huge part of my leadership. And I think, with that, we've really grown the management team, and we continue to grow the management team. I would say I'm really big on respect within the organization, but earning the respect. And having worked in the operations, seen a lot of the faces that are out there working right now, you earn the respect of people because you stood with them in the trenches. You were there for the derailments. You were there through the snowstorms. You were there through the hurricanes, flooding. You were there. And so you earn the respect of the people when you stand shoulder to shoulder with them, tackling these major events. And so I've always encouraged the team, get out in the field. We have days set aside, no meetings day. Your job for that day as a leader is to be out in the field, engaging your people, speaking to people, communicating with them, finding out what their issues are, being able to be able to support your operation to be successful. So it's been a big, big part for me.
That's awesome, man. I love that, because too often, I think, especially in bigger organizations, people end up managing kind of by their laptop or managing by email, right? If you're not out there in the field, I mean, you just said it, right? Not only is the respect, it's also the knowledge that you gain that you can't get unless you're there, really there.
Yeah, and I mean, there's like amazing work that happens every day out in the field. And
Sure.
it's my perception, my perspective that if at the leadership level, we aren't seeing that, then we aren't doing our job to really promote it, to talk about the agency, the people, to support the needs of those folks. You cannot do that unless you understand.
If you like this episode of the Transit Unplugged podcast, then you will love what we have coming up. We're calling it Super September because we're creating an all-star guest lineup just for you. Let's face it, the world is rapidly changing and everything is so fast, and our industry is speeding up. So in September, the Transit Unplugged team is bringing you some of the biggest voices in the industry, from New York, Chicago, maybe even at the federal level. I don't want to tip our hand yet, but you will get a chance to learn how to manage all the policy and funding changes, the post-COVID funding fiscal cliff, how to do all of it, and so much more. If you haven't yet subscribed to the podcast, do it now so you don't miss a thing when Transit Unplugged brings you Super September. Subscribe right now before you get distracted, because we know something's going to ping or a squirrel will come by. So please subscribe and we'll bring you some great shows in Super September. Now, back to Paul Comfort and this episode of the Transit Unplugged podcast.
Let's switch to what's happening right now in the organization. What are your top priorities now as president?
So we've tackled a couple of things. We set key things that we're focused on. One has been modernizing service delivery. So modernizing service delivery is overall looking at different ways that we can improve our service. Every system operates a service from end to end, but we've been introducing new technology to be able to refine our service. It's a complicated system. And when a switch takes an extra 15 to 20 seconds to operate on every different switch move, and it operates 400 or 500 times a day, that adds up. It amounts to more time that you're going to lose in your service. And so literally looking down to the minute aspects, the minute forms of how we provide service, and looking for ways to improve upon them each. If you can gain 5-6 seconds in every single instance, you can improve service. And that's one of the things that we've been doing on the subway side to be able to improve our service. On the bus side, we just rolled out the Queens Bus Network redesign, which is a huge new system, how we can look at the routes that our buses are taking. They were still built on the old trolley system from years ago. The neighborhoods have changed. Where there were farms, you now have tenements and large locations, homes and everything. And so we haven't changed over the years to be able to really support our riders. So we did the largest bus network redesign, I'm going to say, in our history for sure, for 700,000 riders of Queens. It's a lot of work. I mean, changing their routes so that, you could have more direct routes to connecting points, to subway systems. We created what's called a rush route, where some of our longer lines will have a couple of stops, 5, 6, 7 stops in some of the longer areas, and then come straight into the city. Listening to customers and then focusing our redesign to be able to meet their needs. So it was a really challenging way of looking at things, which we had not done in the past. Sometimes we just think we know what's best, but we really got to include our customers. I'd say the second thing that I've been focused on is protecting and supporting our employees. We have a lot of employee assaults. And so focusing on how do we protect those employees, what relationships do we have to have with NYPD, protecting specific areas, what can we do infrastructure-wise to support them. That's been a huge, huge support of me. Again, having worked side by side with these individuals, it's important for me to see that they're safe in their jobs. The third thing has been hardening the system. We had probably the largest fare evasion issue probably in North America. And we averaged somewhere around what we forecasted to be somewhere around $700 million in revenue loss. And so really targeting efforts to be able to look at all of the different indicators, specific areas that we are losing fares, and to target them one by one and introduce Eagle teams on our buses to reduce fare evasion on buses. We've done a host of infrastructure changes in our subway system to be able to improve fare compliance. And all in all, we've had a huge, huge reduction in fare evasion. I think on the subway side, we reduced about 27% of fare evasion. It's huge to be able to get that much, and it increases how customers see us and what we do. And the last thing I would say, it's certainly not the least, but is improving customer service. When you have a huge system like this, sometimes you're just like, listen, we're the only game in town. You just need to get in line. But that's not my perspective. We really need to do a better job of listening to customers, hearing their concerns, their complaints, and then being more supportive of them. So we've rolled out a couple different things. One, getting station agents out of the booth. That was a huge, huge step forward and being able to engage people where they are, helping them directly with the systems, and then introducing customer service centers where a person used to have all of the major work that you'd have to come all the way down to 2 Stone Street in Manhattan to be seen to get a reduced fare card. But now having the ability to be able to service these people at customer service centers has been a huge, huge shift in the culture. We introduced 15 of them about a year ago, and now we're looking at rolling out another 15, changing how we train people so that they can better support our customers, giving them different tools so they can have more information, giving them cell phones with apps on customer service, different languages, apps on service strategies, like giving them the tools to be able to do better customer service with our customers. It really has been about focusing on how do we, even though we're so big, how do we focus on providing better service for our customers?
That's awesome. What about, you mentioned the customer service thing. Down here in Maryland, I'm reading, the New York Post, and there's a lot of stories about crime and stuff on the system. Can you give us an update of what you're doing there to address the concerns?
Yeah, so we don't have a police force for New York City Transit. The NYPD has a transit force, which Chief Galata is the lead for. I mean, with Chief Galata on a recurring basis to talk through different concerns, issues that we have. And so for us, it really is about partnership, talking to them about some of the trends that we're seeing, not just for our customers, but for our employees as well. Talking about the incidents where we're seeing assaults on the rise, talking about instances where we're seeing a higher number of vagrants. One of the things that we rolled out was the Scout program, which is a combination of a mental health provider and a MTA police or NYPD. And they have the ability to be able to take someone to get the help that they need, even in the instances where they don't want it, which was a huge change from us to be able to help people who need the help. But I would say for our part, for New York City Transit, since I've been here, we've installed cameras in all of our train cars, multiple cameras. So even in our stations, we have cameras in all of our stations. So telling customers, listen, this is not your old transit system where there were so many blind spots. All of these guys who have committed these crimes, they're getting caught. The NYPD has been responsive, posting posters up to these individuals, and they get them 99% of the time. And then it really does rely on the court system to be able to take the next steps. And so the MTA hired a criminal justice advisor, and she's been fantastic in being able to deal directly with the ADAs. Catherine Velasca has been a big proponent of tracking incidents. This person assaulted a customer. This person assaulted an employee. When's the next hearing on that individual? Who needs to be there to support it? And so it's been a huge effort to be able to fight. This is not one of the ones where you actually declare victory. You continue to fight this until your career is over. It doesn't go away.
So what is exciting you? What's the most, innovation or technology that you're most excited about deploying in the system next?
I would say it's not new, but CBTC, communications-based train control, is new for us. We have 2 lines fully with it now, and we're rolling out more. Most systems, and I'll say our system as well, we were really averse to change. And so when we first rolled out CBTC, we did it as a signal overlay. It's literally on top of our existing signal system. And so the systems are fully functioning. I mean, throughout the world, CBTC has been kind of established as the future of our signaling. So that's the way we've been going. Since I've taken the lead, we have been saying, like, we're going to get rid of the conventional signal systems and focus more on communications-based train control. But I've taken that same perspective on other areas. So we just created a team now. Everyone has what they do well, right? You buy this switch because, you work with this manufacturer for the last 20, 30 years, and everyone has that same thing, whether it's a switch, a piece of signal equipment, it's a converter, it's an inverter, it's whatever it is. It's that thing that we've always done. And, so we created a team. We have a benchmarking team that talks to the industry and says, internationally, what are you doing for this? What are you doing to work on this challenge? Now we just expanded that to include a group that will go out there and see, what is your best widget? What is your best switch? What is your best inverter, converter? What are the things that you benefit from in your car classes? What bus manufacturers are you doing really well with? Are there pieces of safety that you've been using that have benefited your employees? Having a group go out there and say, what are the best things that are being done in the system and how can we bring them back to New York City Transit? Doesn't mean that everything will be able to be accepted, but at least having the mechanism in place that goes out there and looks at that and then determines whether or not it can be included. So I'm excited about being able to affect change. It's funny because this position has always been a 1, 2, maybe 3-year position. And when you have a really short turnaround like that, it's hard to be more strategic on where you need to. You're focused on like today. Right? There's always going to be emergencies. So you always get bogged down with the emergencies, but it doesn't give you the time to be strategic. I am a career employee, and so I have time. It does give me the opportunity to say, listen, where would I like to see the organization 5 years? Where would I like to see it 10 years down the line? What is the trajectory? How do we put it on the right trajectory to get there?
Yeah.
I may not see it 10, 15, 20 years down the line, but I will have the time to be able to put in to get it there, to be able to put it on that trajectory.
So tell us, what would you like to see in 5 or 10 years? Do you have it thought out?
Absolutely. So I'm coming up on my 1-year anniversary in October, and what I'll be laying out is over the next 2 years, the things that I'd like to accomplish or set in motion. And a lot of it is on the capital side. Right?
Yeah.
We now have this capital program that we just introduced, which is exciting, but it's on us to deliver, right? And we have to deliver that without having an impact to our customers and giving the true benefit intended for it. You get a substation that comes in, new substation, fantastic. You haven't replaced any of the cables tied to the substation. When there's a power outage, you're going to say, just change the substation. So being able to introduce functional systems so that each time you introduce something that's set to improve our service, being able to check that one off as a new accomplishment, I'm excited. So I think working through the long-term issues of how do we best serve tomorrow for our customers is a really exciting thing for me. And ultimately, being able to put my stake in as one of the, if not the premier presidents for New York City Transit.
So, and that's what congestion charge is about, right? I mean, a lot of people hear about congestion charge and they don't understand the money's going to capital, right? Rich Davey told me that when he was there, when it was first getting going. I remember I interviewed him like at APTA or something like that, and I didn't even know it then. He said, oh yeah, all the money's going into capital.
Yeah. And I think most people, they really focused on the funding, right?
Yeah.
Funding on the capital. But the reality is it has a huge benefit to our customers. Bus service has sped up considerably since we introduced congestion pricing because less people are driving. And so the buses, we have some buses that have picked up 5 to 7 minutes worth of time coming into the city since we introduced congestion pricing. And those who continue to still ride, even their commutes are now better because there are less cars on the road. So ultimately, there are huge benefits for the region, not to mention clean air, the fact that we're a congested system. Unless you've lived in New York, you have no idea what noise is. But it is amazing to be able to hear a different New York, especially at nighttime. It's pretty amazing.
All right, one final fun question. What's one thing you wish more people understood about the complexity of running New York City Transit?
So I think most people see the front-facing employees. They see conductors, bus operators, they see customer service, station agents, but they have no idea the level of expertise that goes into running the system. Our drainage system, for example, we take on 18, 17 million gallons of water a day when it's dry out. Now, to be able to maintain a system that is not only free flowing so that the water can go to the drains, but also big pumping mechanisms to be able to pump this water out into the sewer system is a huge task that no one even knows happens behind the scenes. When you talk about substations, no one knows what it's like to maintain or operate a substation. They have no idea. When we talk about our car barns, nobody wants to replace a barn, right? They say, oh, we want new cars, but why do you have to replace the barn? Well, that barn doesn't have ceiling heights tall enough to be able to repair the air compressors on the cars. There is not enough space for an employee to work safely in between the two cars, much less get under the train. So being able to look at how do we affect this system and having our customers see that it's not just as simple as the front-facing employees. It's like a watch. There's a whole host of things that are going on behind the scenes, and all you see is the time of day.
I love that analogy, Demetrius. That's really good. Yeah. So they're just looking at the driver on their bus, not understanding that that's the tip of the iceberg. Would be underneath the surface, a lot going on to make it happen, huh?
Absolutely.
Well, great talking to the guy who's at the very top of the iceberg, making it happen. And it's wonderful that you even know all this because you came up through the organization, so you know the places to look and where we need the support. Thank you so much again for your time today, Demetrius, and we wish you the very best. I've been talking to your media department about coming up there and actually filming an episode of Transit Unplugged TV there next year to show them. Maybe we can get into there into a substation and you can show us, or one of your guys can, look at that. See, we got to keep that running all day long.
I'd love to have you. Love to have you.
That'd be great. Well, thank you so much for being with us, and we wish you the best, Demetrius.
Thank you so much. Good chatting with you.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Transit Unplugged podcast. We're so glad you're here. My name is Julie Gates. I'm the executive producer of the show, and our goal is to create programs that promote the great things going on in the transit industry by providing you with behind-the-scenes access with industry executive leadership so we can work together to find innovative industry solutions. We would love to have you be a part of the Transit Unplugged community by having you sign up for our newsletter. Head to the show notes to find the link. Thanks for listening to Transit Unplugged with Paul Comfort, our favorite transit evangelist, and we'll catch you next week. Thanks for tuning in.